For those of you who are not familiar with ClientSuccess, or you're just getting familiar with ClientSuccess, we are a customer success management platform and more. Historically, we have been a solo platform, really helping customers, what we said, manage from new to renew, so that entire post-initial sales life cycle. But we are so much more than that. Over the past several months, if you've been following our journey, we've had a series of acquisitions, including one of my personal favorites, Baton. If you're not familiar with Baton, it is an onboarding solution, but so much more. I do encourage you, if you are somebody who leads onboarding, whether it's in your customer success function, you're part of an implementation team, take a peek at it. You will not be disappointed. We have been moving folks over to our solution for the past several months now, and the feedback is fantastic. So if you're interested in learning more about Baton, you can go ahead and scan that QR code. It will bring you to some more information and get a demo scheduled. So if you are interested, I definitely recommend you go check it out. For those of you who are not familiar, ClientSuccess runs a community event every year. Okay, it's not a client success event. Yes, we are the hosts of it, but it's not for our customers. It's for the community. So we like to think that it's like a for us, by us type of event. Now, it is exclusive, and the exclusivity is right in the name. It's CS100. We do cap the attendees to 100. Now, the reason why we do this is so intentional, but it is really there to help build and foster intimate relationships and help to learn together. This takes place at Sundance, Utah. And so if you can see some of the mountains in the background here, it is a wonderful, wonderful resort. Beautiful views. If you've never been, I'm telling you, it's just absolutely breathtaking. The best way I can describe this, it's like customer success camp, okay? Because not only is there a ton of learning and networking and relationship building, but we also get out there on the mountains. So you can do horseback riding and zip lining and hikes, walks in the park, arts and crafts. There's a spa, lots of restaurants, tons to do. And so in addition to really spending time building relationships, building your personal board of directors, there's a lot of activities and a lot of fun. So this year, the event is going to be September 22nd, 23rd, and 24th at the Sundance Resort in Utah. You can go ahead and scan that QR code. It will bring you to the Eventbrite page. There is a discount right now in place. I promise you, prices are only going to go up. They will not go down. So if you are interested in joining us, please go ahead, scan that, get registered as soon as possible. I will tell you, we already have quite a few tickets sold. This is usually from repeat attendees. Quite frankly, we always ask at the event, how many of you have attended CS100 before? And I would say like about 60% of people put their hand up. And the reason why is this is a very, very, very special event. And once you go once, I promise you, you'll want to go again. Content is fantastic. We're actually going to be dripping out some of our fantastic speakers. And I tell you, this lineup is killer. Really fantastic brands, thought leaders in our space, and just super excited to get this a little bit out there. We were waiting for some other events to finish down, so we weren't distracting anybody with anything else, but would love to have you. And as a bonus, my birthday is September 23rd. So if you don't just want to go for the learning and the events, you can come and celebrate my birthday with me because it's right smack in the middle of this event. Would love to have you all there to celebrate my birthday with 100 of my closest customer success friends. Last thing I'll say about this is that it is a leadership event, okay? The content, the entire event is designed for people, leaders in customer success. So there's really, I just want to be very clear here. This is not an IC event. It is a leadership event. So if you are a leader in the space, want to come, want to attend, absolutely go ahead and do that. If you you're an IC and you have a leader in your organization that you think would benefit from attending, please let them know. We'd love for you to help us spread the word. Okay, so moving right along. So why you're all here. I had recently done some content on LinkedIn about some options that are available beyond an EBR or QBR. Now, for anybody who's been following me for any amount of time, you probably know my stance on EBRs and QBRs, and that is that I just don't like them. Now, I just think that as an industry, we've kind of bastardized them. They are not what they once were. If you are familiar, EBRs, QBRs, they came out of the consulting world and they looked very different when consultants did them. And over time, we broke the process, guys. They're just not as valuable as they once were. And so what I wanted to do is introduce a couple concepts here. Now, over the past couple of years, I would say in 18, I designed a concept called a core meeting, which is a customer objectives review meeting. And I used to say, it's core to your business. So I had a whole little tagline and everything. And that was a redesigned version of an EBR and QBR, and it didn't have a specific cadence. It was a completely different model and a take on this. Now, we will talk about that a little bit today because I still think that there's value in that. But what I've learned over the past couple years is that this model doesn't work, right? Companies are using tons of technology. In fact, I used to work for a SaaS apps management company, and I believe at the time, organizations were on average using 200 applications. Now, I know that not every stakeholder is responsible for all 200 applications, but let's say they're responsible for 5. That is 5 different vendors competing for the same space, time of these leaders, and honestly, they just don't have the bandwidth for it. It's not their top priority. So we're going to talk about today is how can we think about alternative ways that we can socialize impact? Because at the end of the day, that's really the objective of these. So I'm going to start by just saying QBRs aren't dead. I'm not one of these folks that are on social media trying to kill everything. There's not a gravestone for every activity of things I just don't personally like. So they're not dead. I still see organizations do these really well. You're working in large enterprise companies. You've got a multitude of different teams that you're selling to. I've seen them done. I've seen them done well. I've been a part of executing them well. So I'm not here to tell you that they're dead. I'm not here to tell you that there's no value in them, but they're not thriving right now. Okay. We have made them an activity that CSMs do, as opposed to focusing on them as a mechanism to achieve an objective. And that's all these are, right? It's a means to an end. The EBR and QBRs were simply just meetings that we would orchestrate to help us achieve a goal. And typically that goal was to socialize value, to align with an executive, to realign on goals, to raise escalations, right? Maybe something's not going well, not going right, maybe even to get ahead of any commercial conversations. So there is still value in that as a practice, but how we deliver that has evolved and we need to evolve with it. So I'm going to share a quick little story here. I do get the privilege and pleasure of speaking at a ton of different events. And one of the things that I had done is I spoke at a VC firm was having an event for their portfolios, and they asked me to come and speak. And I spoke on this panel, and I did a quick little poll. And I said, and it was all, now mind you, this is all founders, it's all CEOs and co-founders. And I said, raise your hand if you've ever attended an EBR or QBR for any one of your vendors. Guess how many hands went up? I'm pretending like you're all answering me. Not one single hand went up when I asked that question. And then I said, well, how many of you expect your customers to attend EBRs and QBRs? And now all of a sudden you get this very embarrassing little I'm sorry to say this, but some of them would raise their hands. And I'm like, how dare you ask your customers to do something you wouldn't do yourself? And then I went on to ask them, well, why don't you attend them? And honestly, for the most part, a lot of them just said it's not a priority, which I get. I'm an executive. It is not a priority of mine to go and attend the QBRs or EBRs for the vendors, the platforms that I use. It's just not. I'm almost never going to attend. Now, I won't say never, because sometimes I attend to do research, right? I want to see how other companies are running them. So I do that selfishly for my own learning, but I'm not doing it as a standard executive who's trying to get the value from them that, these companies are pitching. So I share that story because I think many of the executives that you're probably inviting to these conversations are sitting in that same space of this isn't a priority. I have tons on my plate. I'm not interested in spending an hour with my vendor talking about their product. And sadly, that's what it's become, right? We've used these meetings as a space for us to talk about ourselves. We've gone in and made assumptions that we know what our customers want to talk about. And quite frankly, that's just wrong. The approach is wrong. So what I want to talk about is that we've got to evolve this, right? Executives, they don't want decks, they want decisions. They don't need slides, they need substance. But we've not really leaned into figuring out what exactly that looks like. And so I'm going to challenge you all to say, instead of trying to move forward with EBRs and QBRs as an activity, we need to focus on what our customers want, how they want it, and when they want it. And that's how we need to deliver and we need to show up. So a couple years ago, I'm going to say a couple years now. Yes, about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years now, at ClientSuccess, we made a pivot. And so one of the first meetings that we have with our customers is what we call our partnership kickoff meeting. It is the very first meeting that we have with any customer. And so what we tell them is, we kick off the partnership, we get things started. Now, mind you, we do require that executives be present in that meeting. It's the only meeting where that is a requirement, but it's the first meeting that starts our partnership. And we need to make sure that everyone is aligned. Now, it is not an onboarding meeting. We're not starting implementation. It is not tactical by any means. It is very much an alignment on the partnership. We set expectations, we do introductions, we set the stage about what this is going to look like. We talk about goals. It is very, very, very strategic in nature. So we use this meeting also as an opportunity to ask these questions. Now, I give you some of this as prompts because what we've done is we stopped assuming that we knew what our customers wanted and how they wanted it, and we started asking. And so that's what I'm gonna challenge you all to do. If you're not currently asking your customers what their preferences are, this is a very easy switch, right? Next time you're on a call with them, you can ask. Heck, you can send out a survey. You can send out an email and say, hey, we're redesigning our program. And as part of this redesign, we want to hear from you. Historically, we've done these meetings. We want to know, is there a better way? Here are some ideas that we have. What are your thoughts? You can send a survey. You can send an email. We don't need to do a full court press where we get every single customer on the phone and exhaust this effort. It is as easy as sending a note. So some of the questions that we ask is, one, do you want to be updated on progress and impact? Now, I don't know a ton of executives that say no, thank you. Most of them say yes, right? So at least now we're one step in the right direction, right? Yes, they want to receive an update. They want to know how things are going. They want to understand the impact that we're having, especially does that impact align with the impact that we expected? The second question we ask, well, what's the appropriate cadence for us to share that? Now, mind you, you've got customers who are going through onboarding. And so as they're going through onboarding, right, you're probably providing weekly updates or there's some kind of status that's being shared, or maybe you have a collaborative work environment like we use Baton. Our executives could go in there, they can log in, they can see there's also reporting that can be generated. So there's probably a lot of stuff that's happening initially, but you've got to figure out what is the appropriate cadence. Now, an executive might say, you know what, once a month is perfectly fine. That's great. Now we know. Maybe it's once a quarter. Also great. Now we know. So you've got to figure out when. Then you should ask, what would you like to see included? A lot of people are missing this, right? Again, we go back to this assumption that we know exactly what information we're going to put in here and we're going to templatize it and it's going to be a thing and it's fine. We already know. They don't know. We know best. You're wrong. Okay, you don't know best. And now I'm not suggesting that everything be bespoke and that everything is a custom report, but start by asking your customers and then find themes of what these customers want to see. Some might want to see progress to their goals. Some might want an update on the roadmap. Some might want, a revenue ROI report, right? Some might want to understand how are they doing against best practices. So what's the benchmark report? There are things that people are going to want to see, and you're going to see themes pop up. Now, it's really cool if you did this in a survey, you can then use that survey data very easily, drop it in ChatGPT, make it even easier on yourself and say, what are the top 3 things that all of our customers want? Boom, you're going to have it in seconds. Magic, right? But we're not making assumptions any longer. We're asking them, what do you want to see? Now, then last thing that we do ask is, what's the best format for us to share that with you? That's where this becomes a game changer. Now, I'm going to walk you through a couple ideas that we have, and I'm going to talk to you about what is possible for you. Now, what I'm going to show you today, though, this is not an exhaustive list. By no means am I restricting the creativity to what I put on these slides. By all means, go figure out a better way, an alternative way. But hopefully what I will do today is just get you to start thinking about this differently, because there are better ways for us to communicate this information. There's also, again, better ways for us to achieve this objective, more importantly. So we have to stop thinking about EBRs and QBRs as the goal. That is the activity. It is a mechanism. It is a means to the objective. That is all it is. So if you or your leaders are tracking EBRs and QBRs, you're tracking the wrong metric. That is an activity. That is not an outcome. How do you know that that was successful? Nobody knows. Nobody's tracking that. You have to move away from that. So I'm going to continue to challenge you guys through this presentation today, but I want you to keep thinking about that. Okay, guys, I'm just going to pause here for a minute. Please do not use the chat for LinkedIn URLs. I know that you're all eager to connect with one another, but it does prevent people from having conversations in the chat. So please don't use it for that. You can connect privately. Sorry, I usually do say that when I kick off in just our housekeeping, but please restrict the chat to conversations about the presentation today. Thank you so much. Okay, getting back to things. So the 5 things that we're going to talk about today, there are 5 alternatives to traditional EBRs and QBRs. I'm going to just introduce some of the ones that we're thinking about today. So if we look at this, there's 5 that I've got out here. The first one is video updates. This is super easy, okay? These are, you can use Zoom, you can use Loom, you can use your phone. You do not need fancy tech for the things that I'm going to suggest today, but video updates are a great alternative. Executive reports. Now, for a lot of EBRs and QBRs, at the top of them, oftentimes you'll have an executive summary. Maybe it's a slide in there. If that's not something you were including, that's probably another missed opportunity in your EBR QBR process. But what I would always do is lead with the first slide being an executive summary. Now, why would I do that? Well, oftentimes, if you ever went on site and had an executive on site with an executive present there for an EBR or a QBR, what happens is they go, okay, I've got 15 minutes. What do I need to know? That is not uncommon. I cannot tell you how many times I've met with Fortune 100, 500 companies. I got an exec in the room and they tell me they're giving me 15 minutes. I'm on site for 2 hours. That is our plan. They're giving me 15 minutes. Having the executive summary slide allowed me to hit on the most important points while they were in the room in 5 minutes, allow them to have a dialogue, have the conversation that we need to have, and let them leave. So if you weren't doing that, I will just say any of those presentations should have an exec summary slide as your very, very first slide. It is a great takeaway for them as well, and something that gets socialized. They don't need to go through 87 slides in your deck. The exec report is a kind of draw from that. Scorecards. This is super powerful if you've got a platform that your customers want to be baselined against other customers or industry best practices or industry standards. Scorecards are a great way for them to know, how am I doing? That is not an uncommon ask for a lot of leaders, right? Because they don't know what they don't know. They know their team is using your product. They know that they're seeing some value from it, but what does that value translate to? How can it be measured? And so this is a great way for you to highlight that. The next one here is the core meeting. Now, again, this is my take on EBRs and QBRs. 2018, I started doing this. I got a lot of traction, a lot of excitement around the shift from an EBR and QBR. The core meeting, I've got frameworks for it. We've done a boot camp on it previously here at ClientSuccess. You can go and find that on our YouTube channel. It's also on our website if you're interested in seeing more about how to orchestrate a core meeting. And the last is an asynchronous communication with a poll. Now, yes, you could do one or the other, but they are very valuable when you package those two together. So these are the 5 alternatives I'm going to walk you through. We're going to talk about them, how you can start to orchestrate them in your organizations. So the first one is the video update. Now, I don't know about you guys, but we are using Loom all the time. Now, of course, there's like Vidyard, there's Loom, there's other alternatives. I'm going to use Loom in exchange for video. Okay, so when we're talking about it, just insert your video platform. But this would be a personalized video that could be to the executive. You can personalize it. You can make them generic too. If you had a whole bunch of customers where it's just a specific update, I've seen people do that as well. I've seen technology now with AI. You can go and create these videos that look like you telling a message. You can add in prompts with the customer's data in there. There are tons of ways to automate this very innovatively. But let's assume we don't have all the fancy tech in the world, but we still want to use video. You can just create the videos. They don't need to be long. So think about these as like quick, digestible, human-sized bites, okay? Think about us living in a TikTok generation. Now, I don't know how many of you are spending any time on TikTok. I do. I love it over there. I'm an infinite scroller, but I also know that I have the attention span of a gnat, right? I'm on a video for a couple seconds before I'm on to the next one, right? It is the same format for this video content. So you're not here creating a 30-minute long webinar for them to listen to. You're giving them the highlight reel, right? You're delivering the information that they need in a quick, easy, and digestible format. That is the idea here. So if you have an hour's worth of content to share with your customers, maybe this isn't the best format, okay? You have to be able to package this up very succinctly if you're going to use this. Now we describe it, right? It's a recorded 2 to 3 5-minute max 10-minute absolute max, no exceptions, okay? Do not abuse that. You cannot be longer than 10 minutes. That is my rule. That is a law. I'm making that a law, okay? But the shorter you can make it, the better, because again, it's going to be really easily digestible. Now, progress towards key goals is something you're going to want to provide up there, right? Like if you know what your customers' goals are, honestly, I really hope that you all do, but how are they doing towards their goals, right? Think about it through an ROI standpoint, wins and impact. So what are we doing that is working really well? It could also be, what are we doing that's not working really well? If you've got concerns, it's fine to add that in there. I have talked to folks who are so avoidant of any bad news when it comes to executives, like they don't want to have that conversation. I don't sit in that camp. I think that I'm better to address things head on than to avoid them. So, for example, if I see that adoption looks really low, I'm going to call that out. I'm going to say, it looks like maybe we have a change management issue here because it doesn't seem that the team is using it as instructed or as we went through an onboarding or whatever the case may be. I might offer, right, some recommendations, which you see here's my third point, strategic recommendations. I might say, maybe we need to do a re-onboarding. Maybe we need to do an on-site with training and enablement and user training. Maybe I have an LMS that they can have access to. Provide recommendations, but don't be avoidant of sharing things that don't sound great. The goal here is to say that, listen, we are partners. My job is to make you guys successful using our solution and services. If they're not using it, we can't be successful. Avoiding that isn't going to help the cause, right? Don't think that magically avoiding anything that's bad is going to allow you to get to the renewal conversation and make that an easy one. So while you have their attention, address things head on. Now, I like to make it asynchronous in the sense that I'm going to send it off to the customer, but I also tell them, feel free to send me a video message back. And I actually do have some executives who will, now, not all of them do video. Some have done audio. I've gotten a lot of audio messages too, where it's like, thanks for the update, blah, 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 word diarrhea, right? Tell me all the things. That's great. I love that. But now we've achieved the objective. We've shared the updates with the customer in an easy, digestible way. Now, when you send the video, guys, you can also share a report. You can share a deck. You can share other attachments. It doesn't need to be a one and done and only this strategy. You can have backup things. You can say in the video, hey, I've also provided you a scorecard or a deck or a report for you to look at to reference the information that I'm telling you, right? There's other things you can do. So things that I've used, I use Loom, I use Zoom. I'm telling you guys, do not over-engineer this. You all have cell phones. I know that. Just pick up your cell phone and record a video and use that. We do not need things to be production ready, okay? We are not looking for these things to be ready to go on TV or Netflix, right? Like that's not what we're doing here. We're communicating a message. We're real. We're authentic people. We might stutter. We might mess up a word. It's fine, guys. That's okay. It's the same thing it would be if we were in person. It's just trying to allow yourself to humanize them, deliver a message in a way that they can handle. So that's the first one here. The second one is a 2-page exec report. Now, this is for folks that maybe like and prefer a little bit more data, but think about this, it's still very concise. It's a visual business update. Again, you're not filling it in with fluff. There's no filler. It's literally just the facts. It's a 2-pager. This is not a deck, right, where you have pretty slides and all of these like graphics and GIFs and whatever else you're putting into your decks. It is literally like, hey, here's where we are. Here's what's happening. Here's our recommendations. Here's some things. Maybe you need them to follow up and respond with something. Or here's what we heard from your team are the next set of priorities. Please confirm yes or no. Now, what I always tell folks about this format, make it boardroom ready. I tell you, I have seen really, really beautiful examples of this with data on them, where the data has just been literally screenshotted from these and included in decks for other purposes. I've seen them used in all hands meetings. I've seen them used in board decks. So this is really cool. If you can make it really nice looking, again, if you've got a BI tool, honestly, if you've got AI, again, this makes it so super easy. You don't need to over-engineer these things. But this would be another alternative. Now, I do see in the chat you're asking, could we show real examples? I cannot because all of these have proprietary data. So unfortunately, I was not able to show you guys any examples of the things that we had. But just imagine it's a 2-page report. We've got some beautiful branding on it. There's charts that's laid out literally with your summary at top, impact. We've got recommendations on there as well, any concerns, and then our understanding of future goals and priorities. So things that you can use to build this out. I'm a big advocate of Canva. Canva allows me to be a graphic designer without having any skills. So I'm a big proponent of that. Canva does have free versions. You do not need the pro version. You don't need a paid version. Use the free one. It's perfectly fine. Google, just use Google Slides. If you've got Microsoft Office and you're using PowerPoint, that's fine as well. If you have BI tools, if you've got Tableau, if you've got Domo, if you've got any of those are also really great because they're going to let you create visuals of the data. Data visualization is fantastic for these. People love a pie chart. They like a bar chart. They like a trended line. Give them things to help them visualize how they're doing. I will tell you, I also hear back from executives. They prefer trends. Isolated data points are not as helpful for them because this is a single snapshot view, right? That's great. This is how we're doing right now. But how does this compare to how we were doing last month? How does this compare to how we were doing last year, right? Because a lot of companies and businesses have seasonality. So maybe month to month isn't helpful, but year over year is going to tell a better story. So you also have to be very intentional about what is the data story that you're going to show in these things. Because again, like I said, a single isolated view, a single snapshot of data is not going to be helpful in these reports, okay? Be able to provide that view. And yes, somebody here said benchmarking is great. I'm going to show you guys that in the scorecard one, but I talk about that as well. But absolutely, that is super powerful. But you have to think about what is the best way to illustrate the best and most accurate story. Now, something else I see folks do, and I'm just going to warn you guys against this, do not try to only show the data that tells a positive story. I have seen people do this very intentionally, that they will only stack the cards in their favor, right? Like, oh yeah, here's a snapshot of this data and it looks great. But like the reality is if you unpacked that, it's not the positive story that you're trying to tell here, right? If you use an isolated month and it's like, let's say you're a retailer and you're like, hey, look at how great we did in December. Of course you did great in December. Every retailer does great in December. So how'd you do in February, right? Like that's an interesting story. So think about that because how you share the data you're sharing in these things is really important to tell an accurate story. The next thing we do is an asynchronous scorecard. Okay, now this is kind of like what's being mentioned, Robert, thank you, like a benchmark report. We use this that way. So for a scorecard, basically what we do is we have certain data that we're highlighting. Now for us at ClientSuccess, our version of this is something we call a platform success audit. And so basically it's the breakdown of how each of our customers is using the platform against best practices. And then we also score them against the cohort of customers that most look like them. Now, it could be same industry, it could be same size, it could be same customer type, right? So maybe they're selling to enterprise. Whatever the similarities are that we draw on, we find a cohort of customers so that we can stack rank them against them so they understand how are they doing against somebody that looks like them. Now, the scorecard is great because we almost treat it exactly like a report card where it's basically like, hey, here's how you're doing. Here's our recommendations. Then here's best practices and kind of what that benchmark looks like. And then here's what we think you should do moving forward. Now, again, there's different versions of this. You do not need to follow what I'm describing here for our scorecard. Again, remember, everything is, it depends. You have to create what works well and best for your business and more importantly, for your customers. So things that we see work really well in this format. Goal progress, right? Something that shows how you're doing to your goal. Usage and adoption trends is a really great one in this. Again, kind of similar to the report, but that is very focused more on like the business aspect of it, where this is kind of going to talk through the more in-depth details around adoption, change management, their goals, all of that as well. We use a red, yellow, green system here. So you could be keeping like a pulse check on what are the success metrics. Again, it's a really healthy visual to say, hey, listen, against best practices or customers who have been with us the same amount of time or have the same use case or are in the same industry, you're red, yellow, green, right? Make it easy for people to understand what is the data telling them. But then also, again, this comparison against standards. That is really where this becomes really powerful. Our customers are always asking, okay, well, that's great, but what are other customers like us doing? Now, we also use the scorecard to provide really creative things that we've seen customers like them doing. Now, this kind of runs a different flow than just the scorecard itself, where we have a typical format for this. My CSMs might include, hey, like here's something really cool that other customers have done that maybe you can think about. It's going to be off the cuff. It may not necessarily be applicable. What we want to demonstrate to our customers is that we're always being innovative. We're trying to be strategic. We're thinking creatively about other things that they could be doing. In the scorecard too, I will tell you, if you guys are a team that are focused on upsells, cross-sells, expansions, growth, I will tell you it's also really good place to go and say, hey, here's how you're doing with the products you're using. And in that same vein, you're able to highlight, hey, but like these are the products you're not using. So it might help generate a conversation that says, okay, great, you're using these products 1, 2, and 3, but 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you're not using. So what we do is we gray those out. And sometimes we might put context like, not part of your current subscription. Let your CSM if you want to know, if you want to learn more about it, things like that. We might include a link to a page on our website that has the description of that product. The CSM can go and create a Loom video if they want, talking about what that product is. Again, the creativity here, like don't let your imagination stifle you. You can go and make these whatever you want them to be. I have seen some of these scorecards where they do have a ton of links that lead them to other places. So for example, if their usage and adoption is really low, the CSM might record a video to actually dig in a little bit deeper here with what their understanding is of that. So for example, we had a customer whose adoption was really low, but what we found out is that they were going through an entirely like reorg structure because they just went through an M&A and they were combining teams and there was another competing solution in place at that other company. And so they were kind of doing a bake off to figure out which one would make the most sense for them. At the time, they kind of slowed down on adopting either solution while they were doing the evaluation. So we had that context and we were able to provide it in there. So it's not just like, oh God, usage and adoption trends are down. Give context where you have it. Or it's a great place to ask a question. So if you don't have that context, you can say, hey, look, I'm looking at this, but I noticed that compared to the past 12 months, 6 months, it looks like things have really slowed down. Have your priorities shift? What are you using in place of this to accomplish XYZ? You can ask questions. Questions can be built in as prompts. It could also be packaged in an email or video alongside of these things. Again, figure out what the best way to do this is. Now, one of the other things that we have done is when we send them, we usually do use Google. We're a Google shop. So if we're using Google, we'll use Google Slides for this. We will add like a comment in there, or even if we're in like Google Docs, you can add a comment. And so sometimes we'll do a comment and tag the person who we're sharing this with so that they can asynchronously kind of communicate with us in the doc. And that also allows for a lot of collaboration and answering questions. So again, think about how your users will best engage with whatever it is that you're sharing. That works for us. It may not work for your customers. You may also prefer to say, you know what? We're not giving you any rights to these documents. Everything's a PDF. Everything is locked down. Everything is like password protected. That's fine too. But you have to figure out a way to invite a conversation. So whether that is through email, whether it is through commenting, whatever the case may be, just figure out how are you going to have your customers provide you feedback on what it is that they're reading and they're consuming here. Now, this is what I talked about with the core meeting. Like I said, this is a customer objectives review meeting. What I did is I tossed away the whole EBR QBR format. It did not work for the work that I was doing. I didn't believe in it any longer. I didn't love the format. I didn't love the demands on customers. I just didn't like anything about it. And so the cool thing about running your own team is that you get to design something that you prefer. And so when I designed this, it was just the only focus here was just on their objectives. We had a very good handle on our customers' goals in the company where I first built and deployed this. And we basically made that the entire conversation. And our goals were not, the goals that we were talking to were not tied to the product we were selling. They were business goals. All we talked about is the influence that we had on those goals. And this is actually what drove more value for the executive to engage, because this was that executive, it was their priorities that were being showcased here. And we would talk about how we helped their team work towards those. And even if our impact was 1/8, right? There's so many other things that go into achieving goals. We play a small part. Now, obviously, we would break that down and we go deeper into the contributions we were making from a product standpoint, because we still do have to justify our costs and the investment that they're making in us. But we started at such a high level that the entire presentation flowed down from there, and it very much did become like a funnel, right? What was the executive's priorities all the way down to our contributions, and broke it down into detail around our product. So it allowed the conversation to flow. I will tell you, despite all of the best decks that I have prepared, the best conversations I ever had in a core format are ones that got past like the intro slide. We never moved beyond that. We had such a great dialogue and the customer was sharing so much and talking so much. I will tell you, best conversations happen and you do not need to go through all 100 slides of your deck. I promise you, you'll be okay. So if you think about a core meeting, what we did in this, it is a presentation format. It is a conversation with your customers. So this does still invite the same level of participation as an EBR or QBR would. But again, now we're working off of the customer's preferred information, their preferred cadence, right? And their preferred format. So my customer has opted in to this as their preference. So things that we did is we got away from just like timeline slides and things like that. This was not the place for a roadmap conversation. Even my customers did want to have updates about the product. We did not use that time for this. So we made sure that we kept this solely focused on the objectives. That was the only way we were going to have the conversation that we all needed to have, right? Yes, some people were interested in product roadmaps, features, things like that. If we needed to, we would have another call, follow up. Now, obviously, if they demanded that this time include that, of course, we would be flexible. But when they understood how we were driving this around strategic initiatives, they very much were like, oh yeah, we can cover the roadmap another time. They really didn't care. So the way that we structured the meeting is very much focus on the goal, the progress. If there were any barriers to achieving any work that we needed to or that we were committing to together, we talked about that. Now, I mentioned this in the other slides there, but avoiding the big red elephant in the room, not talking about things that are going wrong, is not going to be better, okay? It doesn't help you. It is not going to secure the renewal. You can't pretend like your customers don't know what's happening. If they're not using the product and you're not talking about it, I mean, you're both just avoiding it. It's pretty crazy. So we do talk about barriers. We do talk about support needed. And this is kind of a future state. Now, we also make sure that we're realigning on quarterly priorities. Now, again, I put quarterly here because people love context around that, but it doesn't need to be quarterly. It could be their next set of priorities. Heck, for some of the leaders that I worked with, their priorities were annual. And so we didn't need to change them. They might say like, these will continue to be our focus for the year. No need to deviate. Like that continues to be the focus. Continue to like update us on how we're doing towards these. That's great. So we didn't have to change anything. If you need a framework to invite a conversation, you can say quarterly, but again, I'll use it to your discretion. You can decide, but we would talk about what are the next set of priorities. The next thing we did is we co-created the next 90-day plan. So we would obviously come in with a point of view because if we understood even at a high level what their priorities were, how they're using our product, where we were contributing value, where there were still opportunities, we did come in with a point of view. But you would see very much on our slides a visual that would say like our thoughts kind of and like your thoughts, because we weren't trying to build a plan in a silo by ourselves, making assumptions. We don't do that anymore. So what we did is we said, based on what we know about the conversations that we've been having with your team and the work that we've been doing and your priorities, here's what we think the best next set of actions are. This is what our team is committing to do. This is what we think is best. Would love to hear if this is in line with what you would need or what you would expect, or how should we be working together? And so you're giving them space to share what they need. And I will tell you, sometimes the plan that we have is great. And they're like, nope, what you have here is wonderful. Let's move forward with that. Other times they're like, that's not for us. We've got other stuff going on. This isn't like, that's great that this is what you want us to do, but we need to go do these other things. And that's cool too. But they're telling us. So that's what we want to do is we want to move away from assumptions in all of these cases and allow our customers to help drive that. Tools that I've used here, Canva, Google, Microsoft Office, Zoom. Again, insert your favorite products here, but I'm just trying to give you an example. And the reason why I have tools on all these slides is because I need you all to know I do not have a comprehensive tech stack. Okay, I don't have 100 products. I'm not using the most innovative AI things in the world. I can get things done with like a nickel. So I don't want you guys to think that technology is a barrier to entry to make any of these changes and shifts or to do any of this, right? I told you videos, you can do it with your cell phone. You don't even need Loom. You don't need a paid subscription to any video stuff. You can do these things very creatively, get out of your own way. Okay, so then the next thing here is a strategic Slack email recap poll. So let me explain. Some organizations are using Slack with their customers, right? Or they're using some kind of chat exchange, or I've seen people using different collaborative software. Perfectly fine. Insert whatever it is that you're using here, along with something that you can capture feedback with. In this case, we're saying it's a poll, okay? So what we're asking to do here is send a structured recap and a poll. The poll just allows for simple solicitation of information. That's all that is. So what we might do is say like, hey, here's what we've accomplished. Here's what's coming, like the work that we're doing next. Here's where we need your input. And it might be like a link to the form or something like that. Here's a question that we have. We want to make sure that we're doing something well, right? Some people might use it to do NPS. Some people might want to weigh in and get some feedback on the roadmap. Some people want to share about their priorities. It could be whatever it is that you want it to be. Now, what I'm not suggesting here is a full out survey. Okay, I'm not talking like Qualtrics style analysis here. Like that's not where we're going with this. A poll is quick, it's short, it's easy. Is there one question you want answered from your customers? Again, the idea here is to achieve the objective as easily as possible in a format that your customers are going to want to engage with. We have found that the polls are the best way to do that. It's simple, it's quick, it's usually one click. Maybe if we're asking for some context, there's a box they could fill in the blank. So it could be a Slack message, it could be an email, it could be a recap in whatever collaborative software you're using. I don't care where you put it. The intention is that it's a short, quick way that you can send it and that you're soliciting some feedback back from them in a way that can scale. Now, we love the polls because it allows us to collect all of the data from our customers very qualitatively, and we can go and use that to follow up with our customers and say, hey, 80% of you are saying XYZ, or this is going to be our new product roadmap feature because 90% of you said that this would be really important for your next year's priorities or whatever. So when you have it submitted that way, it also does make it really helpful for you to go and use that data to follow back up with your customers. So just a little food for thought. I use Google Forms. Again, we're a Google shop. I don't need to go out and buy Typeform or SurveyMonkey or any of these things. However, if you have a cool tech stack and you have access to these things, I definitely recommend that you go and explore how do you use what you already have. Great functionality behind all of them. But for me, like I said, we're using email and Google Forms, and it gets the job done. Doesn't cost me any extra money. We're already paying for Google Suite. So just again, another idea here. It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. Our customers engage with it. Some executives really like that. So we'll go back to this. I walked you through kind of the 5 alternatives, but here's some things I do again want you to just consider, right? Again, QBRs aren't broken. I do believe that they're extremely outdated when that is the only thing you're offering or where that is the activity mandate. Okay, I'm very clear on that. If your company is asking you to do these and the only thing that they are tracking is did you do them, then to me, that is activity-based work that is not impact-driven. If you're not measuring the impact of those conversations, if you're not tracking who attended and again, being able to do something with that data, not just like in some note doc somewhere that like Bob joined, cool. Like if you're not actually tracking that information to say like, yes, an executive was present. Yes, we reconfirmed the goals. Yes, they validated impact. If you're not tracking all of that, I don't think that they're as useful as they once were. So a few things for you to think about. One, respect their time. Executives are super busy. They don't have time to get on a billion different calls with you. In fact, if they're taking time to even respond to your emails, that is a gift. For you to assume that they should be active in the participate in the partnership just because you're wrong. Your assumptions are wrong, right? Like let's move away from that. They don't have to give you their time. Their time is a gift. If they choose to give it to you, great. Use it wisely. Just remember, demanding 60, 90 minutes may not work for them. So what can you do alternatively to get them to engage? Number 2, elevate the conversation, right? Again, stop assuming that you know what they want to hear. If you're going into presentations with your customers without asking them, what did they want to hear? What did they want to learn? What did they want to see? You're making assumptions, right? It's a partnership. It should be collaborative. Everything we do should be in the spirit of helping our customers be wildly successful with our services, with our software. So if you're not even pulling them along and asking them basic questions like this, what are you doing? And the last thing that I will say here is get creative. I've talked about a few different ways that we're using very accessible technology, right? But how can you use video, AI, asynchronous communication, meetings, right? Like what are the things that what can you do? It could just be email. We don't need to over-engineer these things. So I'm just going to say, think very creatively about the ways that you can achieve the same objective. I've given you 5. I bet you if we all brainstorm together, we can come up with 5 more. So Don't let creativity stump you here. I hate this saying, think outside the box, but I am going to say, think outside the box, think creatively, think about the things that you can do, what the resources that you have. But I will say, do not let resources prohibit you from trying something new. Okay. You don't need big budgets. You don't need an infinite tech stack. There are so many free resources that you have. Maybe there's technology in your company right now that you can leverage. Go to IT, ask them all the tools that your company is available. Ask them, buying a license to a piece of software you already have procured is a lot cheaper than going out and buying a new product. Most people don't even know all the tools that are in their company being used by other teams. Go ask the question. Go ask sales. Hey, what do you guys use in your tech stack? Hey, marketing, what do you guys use in your tech stack? Go ask those questions. I bet you guys will unpack hundreds of new tools that you'd never even heard of that maybe have an applicable use for you in this vein. So just think about that. So I'm just going to leave you with this. Make it work for your customers and your business. Make sure that you're tracking the impact of this. Is this model working? Don't just go out and do any of these 5 things and say, great, Kristi told me to do this. I don't know if it's working. Make sure that you've got systems in place to track the impact, right? Are executives engaging differently, right? If they've leaned in and told you that this is their preferred way to engage, is it having that impact? Make sure that you're tracking it. Understand what that looks like. Track milestones and track outcomes. Collect feedback. When you make a change like this, it's cool, it's creative, your customers may or may not like it. But make sure that you're going back to them and saying, hey, listen, after 6 months of us rolling out this new program, we've given you all these options. We want to hear, is this delivering the value that you thought it would? Would you like to see us do something different? Would you like to opt into an alternative way of receiving this information? Is the one you selected not working for you? Go back and ask your customers, get those insights from them, and then iterate and evolve. How can you make this even more effective? That should be the question you're asking yourselves all the time. Go back to your customers and say, even the ones that said like, yes, this is super valuable, go back to them and say, well, what could make this even more valuable? Because it's so great when your customers are like, yes, we love this. This is so great. This is cool. This is exactly what I needed. Go a step further. Say, wonderful. We love to hear that. We designed it in hopes that would be your feedback. What could we do that would make it even more valuable for you and your teams? Ask the question. Let them be a part of the design process. So that's what I'm going to leave you with, guys. I'm going to move it over to Q&A. If you guys have asked any questions and they're in the Q&A, I will go ahead and answer those. I'm going to pause and stop sharing my screen. Okay, very good. We've got 2 questions here. So again, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. We've got 8 minutes remaining. Just go and drop them in there. I will ask them as they come in. So the first one is, for the stop assuming and start asking framework, do you have similar call when you have a change in exec sponsor? How often do you check in to make sure what was set up during the initial call is still the customer's preference? That is a fantastic question. So yes, every time that there is a new executive in place, and unfortunately, because everyone is changing jobs and layoffs are happening more than we like to see, sadly, there are new execs popping up all the time. We absolutely do a reset with them. Anytime there's a new executive in the partnership, we go back to them, we ask them, we share with them, hey, here's how the previous executive was asking us to collaborate with them. Here's how we were sending that. This is the information we've sent. In fact, here's the last one we sent, so they can go and reference that. However, we understand that with a new leader probably comes some new ways of doing things. What is your preference? Here's what we offer. Would love to hear your thoughts. Allow them to, again, opt into something new that works for them. The next thing is, how often are we checking in with our customers on this? I would say periodically. We don't have a very specific cadence right now that we're checking in, but if it does make sense, you could just have an automation rule go out that is sent out quarterly that says, hey, we've moved to this new format. We are doing these new things. How are you enjoying the way that we are providing you updates on the partnership? And you can say like, yes, we love it. Keep going. It's okay, but we'd like to see something else. Or no, this sucks. Do something different. It's okay. Like give them a selection, let them have an open text box. You can do it that way and have an automation that just allows them to give feedback quarterly. You can have your CSMs ask in the conversations that they're having with their customers. It doesn't matter. Figure it out. But I would just check in and just figure out what the cadence is. And then how do you want to go and solicit that information? Both really great questions. Okay, the next one is, what do you do if your customer has poor results? As a result of the economic climate and things outside of your control, and talking about it could cause your customer to want to cancel your services versus them being oblivious to issues and staying happy and renewing. Guess what? Your customers are not oblivious. They see the data that you see. They're part of the problem, right? So they know if they're not using something. Avoiding these tough conversations is never going to serve you well. Even if you somehow manage to get the renewal in under the radar, that is not a strategy. That's not why we're here. If you're doing that, that's poor form. I'm just gonna be honest with you. That's not what a CSM does. Okay, that's not what a leader should be empowering their teams to do. We're not here to slide under the radar. If I see an issue, we address it head on. Now, to your point though, I may not want to put that in a report and just send it off. I might go and say to my customer, hey, listen, as we were preparing the information for you in your video, in your report, in your scorecard, in your core deck, I noticed some things that were concerning. Instead of me just shipping this off, might you have 15 minutes for us to grab a quick call to just align on this so that I have context and can provide you with some insight into what I'm seeing? Ask for 15 minutes. You're not asking for an hour. You're not asking to go through a whole deck. You're saying, hey, I'm seeing something. I'm saying something. Can we talk collaboratively to go figure out what's going on here? That is what a partnership looks like. Avoiding this is not the answer, guys. But I do agree. Shipping bad news asynchronously might not also be the best way to approach it. So go and invite a dialogue. Okay, the next question here is a question from the chat that I would also answer to. I love leaving it to the client, but have found this challenging to scale if we're giving them the choice on how we report. Has anyone else seen this challenge? Would you want to possibly use these methods based on segment of the client base, video updates for lower tier revenue clients? Exactly. Okay, absolutely agree that yes, if your focus right now is just scale, you've got an entirely low engagement model and everything you're doing is a digital touch, maybe you only offer the things that you can provide in that format. And so maybe it is, hey, opt into a meeting or only giving them one other selection. You do not need to extend a buffet like the one that I've presented with you guys today. You don't have to give them all those options. You can limit it to what you can do. You might even say, hey, listen, we're moving away from an EBR QBR format because we understand that your time is precious. You don't have a lot of it. And instead of that, we are going to introduce this new format. What we're going to be doing is these video updates. You could say something like that, just proactively say, we're not doing this, we're doing this now. However, if your preference is still to have a formal EBR QBR meeting, let us know and your CSM is happy to accommodate. So that way they don't feel like you're taking something away from them that maybe they found valuable and replacing it with something that they feel like could be less valuable. Give them the option. But you can just say, hey, we're moving to this because we've heard back from some customers that they're busy, they don't have time. And so we want to be proactive in providing alternative ways to achieve the same objective. Again, everything we do is how you position it. It's the marketing of customer success. If you lean into it conversationally and articulate the value to the customer and why you're doing it that way, that will be really valuable for them. It's often really well received. And if you package it with, I've spoken with 100 customers, and those customers have shared some of their challenges with how we've been asking them to engage and have made recommendations that we adjust. Based on that feedback, here's what we have decided to do. It's a great way to start. You don't even need to go speak with 100 customers. If you've heard that feedback from 5 customers, it's okay. You can say, we've heard from our customers, right? You don't need to put a number in there. So again, it's how do we position the changes that we're making in a way that shows them we hear them, we're trying to adjust, we want to be accommodating, but we have objectives that we believe if we achieve them together, it will make the partnership that much more impactful. So that said, we have 1 minute left. I did get through all the questions. If anybody does have any questions that we didn't answer today on the webinar, please feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to answer anything else. I hope that this was a good use of your time. As I always ask, I do cherish this time that we have together. I recognize that an hour is not a small amount of time. I hope I gave you at least something to think about as you go back to your organizations and consider alternative ways of doing things. We need to move away from what is not working and try things that are different, right? We want to move from that definition of insanity and doing the same things over and over again, expecting different outcomes. People are busy. We're living in the future. Be creative. Try something new. I hope that works. We will have more webinars coming up. I promise you to give you more than 1 day's notice, but I, again, appreciate you joining me here today. Hopefully we'll see you back next week. Thank you guys so much for your time. I appreciate you all.